Nailed it. Got it perfect. Even with the Instagram live one this time. So
love to see that.
Yeah, nailed it. What's up? My name is James Cole. I'm the owner of PaydirtDFS.com, and this is the Week 9 Slate Talk here over at Paydirt. As always, I'm joined by Pablo. How are you doing today, Pablo?
I am doing well. I feel like I'm seeing this slate very clearly. I don't know that it will matter, quite frankly, but I do think it's like a kind of like a very obvious slate. It's just kind of like, we'll talk about it, but it's so loosely priced that there's going to be a few critical decisions that kind of dictate your entire day.
Yeah, it's it's another one of those slates where we have untold value. This week, though, to be very fair, we've been talking shit about DraftKings pricing algorithm for weeks now, basically the entire season. This week, yes, the pricing is still a bit soft across the board. Just from a glance, kind of looks like we're, maybe $500 short on most players. But in their defense, we did not know, and DraftKings did not know, that we would have multiple players, multiple running backs be out this week and have multiple backup running backs be thrust into the starting role. So that's where the big issue is this week, is the running back stuff. Obviously, we're going to hit on all that. But this is one of those weeks where it's much more akin to what we had, 2, 3, 4 years ago, where the value really opened up because of injuries midweek rather than value just existing just because it exists. So a little bit more of an old school NFL DFS slate here. The issue, of course, is that, and years ago when this would happen, this would be the super high scoring week, and you'd have 3 of these the entire year. And this year it's every single goddamn motherfucking slate, and I'm just so tired of it. But it is what it is. So I'm gonna load up all the things. But Pablo, did you just kind of want to give a little macro here while I get everything?
Yeah. I mean, so look, this week is a combination of some very high totals with some very loose pricing, and that's going to create some challenges in terms of prioritizing where you're going to try to find your kind of where you want to take your stands, because there's so many cheap players and there's so many high total games that both medians and ceilings are really, really high. Specifically at running back, there's a few outlier values, and then there are a few games that I do think have specifically a few decisions that are going to be more critical in dictating your leverage. Not as much. I've built quite a bit in the last few hours just to kind of test different approaches, and I'm not finding it that my macro builds change that much depending on these decisions. It's more my leverage. You're figuring out where you're going to leverage one side of a given game, I think is going to matter, because there's a few games where ownership is funneling into, predominantly the Giants. Niners is getting some ownership, and also Chicago. And then also, the Chicago Cincy game. I think those two games, there's a few decisions that you kind of have to pick an approach, and then that's going to dictate a few other decisions. So anyway, long-winded way of saying loose slate with a bunch of high totals. But I do think there's a couple games that have more meaningful decisions.
The point blank thing that I just want to say on this slate is Roman Dunze is elite leverage this week. Kyle Monangai, which I there's no way I said that name right, but he's going to be the Giga Mega Chalk. It's going to be 60% owned, and he should be. Just to be very clear, he should be. His rushing prop is 78 yards or some shit. He's $4,600. It's an absolutely egregious thing. Everybody's gonna tell you every single stat in the book about why he should be a great play, and to be clear, he is. But he is. I mean, let's just look at really quick the ownership specifically for Chicago, right? I'm just going to have Chicago in the range of outcomes. You have Monong at 50, right? And he's going to be higher than that. I don't know what's going on with small field own. I'll fix it tomorrow. But like Monongai at 50%, Zacchaeus, fucking Olamide Zacchaeus, is the second highest owned bear at 14% owned. And then Caleb Williams at 12, DJ Moore at 10, and Roma Dunze at 10. That just screams you should have a Chicago Bears stack. Just on the point of leverage. And I know that our good friend of the show, Jeremy Q King, is absolutely going to have some Bears stacks this week. He had Indianapolis stacks last week against Jonathan Taylor chalk, which I thought was sharp. The sharp play is going to be having one stack where it's a Chicago, Cincinnati passing game environment game stack where you don't have Kyle Monongai. Because like, look, he's a great play, but we've had these kind of great plays in the past, right? We've seen them year in and year out. There's a backup running back that gets thrust into the main role, and then their efficiency drops because now they're a starter rather than a backup. They don't quite have the same, they don't have quite the same setup. They don't have soft boxes to run into. And because of those things, their efficiency drops. And then we have the other backups, the practice squad call-ups, like Travis Homer. Travis Homer was killing us trying to play fucking dude on the Seahawks. I don't remember who's the starting running back on the Seahawks that he was.
Oh, you're talking about Kenny Walker and then the other guy, the guy who catches passes too.
Yeah. You'd end up with KJ Walker or with Kenny Walker, and Travis Homer would still be there, right? He'd still take 20% of the carries and 8% of the targets, some shit. So I think that it's absolutely fair to say that Kyle Monongai at 60% owned is ripe for being a shitty play. And just from an ownership standpoint, I think that if you're a GPP player, if you don't have a Bears stack or at least some exposure to Roma Dunze, who Roma Dunze is not even expensive, 6,600 is absolutely an appropriate.
He's come back down. He's come back down.
So I think that is just point blank. That's the best large field play on the slate is a Bears stack.
It's a good segue. Let's talk about quarterback for a second, because I think I'm personally in my early builds finally finding it hard, as has been the theme now for several weeks, to spend much at my quarterback.
Yeah.
I think we've got an obvious value play in Dart. He'll be probably the most owned cash quarterback, and that'll bleed into GPPs. People do want Caleb, but they're going to use Monongai with him. They're not going to just play Caleb with Roma Dunze and Zacchaeus instead. They're going to do Caleb, Odunze, Monongai. And then I do think there's one value quarterback that's kind of gross, but it's being overlooked. And I was happy to see our models have him with a pretty elite 3X, which is Mac Jones. I mean, he's like a pivot off of Dart for a little bit cheaper, and he's not going to be very owned. So I think the first decision this week, it's not the first decision because we've talked about quarterback not necessarily driving the rest of your lineup, but think about it more as just another player. But a decision is going to be, do you go to one of those cheap guys like Dart, Mac Jones, or a little more mid-range like Caleb, who's not very expensive, or do you find a way to get up to Mahomes, Allen in that Buffalo KC game that's had a huge total, Herbert, who's got Ladd McConkey, who projects great value, with Gadsden as well. You can throw Keenan Allen in there. You can throw QJ in there. May, who's been lighting it on fire. I'm not suggesting I probably won't pay up for quarterback, but it is a slate where the contrarian play is to pay up at quarterback just because people are going to play Jackson Dart and maybe get up to Caleb Williams. But no, the pay up quarterbacks are not going to be really owned. I don't think I'll get there either, but I'll just point out that sometimes paying up is a contrarian thing to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. There's going to be a lot more ownership on the cheaper guys this week. And, Kansas City Buffalo has a history of just being like the shootout of shootouts. I mean, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are legit like modern day Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And they just go at each other every single time that they're on the field. I think that you have to, especially with the value that we have at running back this week, I think it makes a lot of sense to pay up at quarterback, specifically because the matchups are fucking great. Being able to have either side of the Kansas City Buffalo game, I think, is terrific. Having Justin Herbert against Tennessee's pass defense is trash.
Yeah.
Drake May even 6,500. That's a pretty decent spot against Atlanta.
Yep.
So I do think, and I mean the medians bear it out. The one median that is there that's obviously a sore fucking thumb is Jackson Dart, who is he's just drastically underpriced. So he's going to get ownership, and it's going to be deservedly so. But I do think that these guys, it's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. This is a really nice spot to get to. Really, really quick. I want to talk some questions really quick that we got.
Yep.
So 2v2 CMC Texans or Gibbs Lions DST. I just don't care that much about defenses, so I think this is really just 1v1 of Christian McCaffrey versus Gibbs. It's a better game environment for Christian McCaffrey. I think that overall,
his usage is like crazy too. Our projections and the industry have CMC as like outlier ceiling this week.
Yeah, if we just take a look at running backs, like the expected fantasy points for Christian McCaffrey is just drastically higher than Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think you got to go with Christian McCaffrey. There's no way that a defense can get you there. And to your second question, thoughts on a single stack of Goff and JMO or Amon-Ra St. Brown? I can't single stack Goff. I just prefer in those situations, like if you're looking at a situation where you want to be different in the way that you stack the Lions, the way that you do it is you go JMO plus Amon-Ra St. Brown and don't use Goff. Instead, just use both of those guys and use Jackson Dart, who's cheaper than Goff and is going to have high ownership and like he's a good play. I think that's a much more interesting way of going about that stack.
Yeah. We're going to get to receivers in a minute too, but I think there's like a few quarterbacks on the slate where they've got weapons that are well priced to pair with them, and the quarterback will be low owned enough where I think it's better to use those quarterbacks who already have a receiver that you can pair them with, or two receivers that are already priced in a better way. Yeah. The problem with the Lions, and I think they're sneaky because they've got a big total and they're not going to be very owned, is that their players are all priced like pretty appropriately. And then, like James said, you don't want a skinny Goff, and doubling him, you're giving up a ton just because of the pricing. So like we'll talk about the receivers in a minute, but I think like Herbert fits that a lot better because Ladd and Gadsden and the others are appropriately priced, like better priced than Detroit. And then similarly, like if you can get up to Mahomes Allen, like Rashee Rice is back and has a great role now. You can you can play Josh Allen honestly naked just because of how much he runs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't hate Goff. Like sometimes line stacks win people money because they're just not owned, and certainly they could do that in any given week. But I just think there's better pairings this week.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think that at 6,000, Jared Goff is probably appropriately priced, but as I said, I just think you just drop down to Jackson Dart, unless you're gonna like overstack it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get back to quarterbacks here. I think that I like your idea of paying up at quarterback this week. I was trying to think through a little bit of, having all of this value at running back, because you can legit plug in, and we'll talk about running backs here in a sec, but you can legit plug in 3 value running backs and get not only nice medians, you also get nice value. You also lower your volatility a lot because 3 of them are going to have ownership, right? So if you do that, you legit you level out all 3 of the levers that we care about, right? We have a ceiling, we have our value, we have our volatility is in check, so we don't have to worry that much about correlation. We don't have to worry that much about volatility, and we don't have to worry that much about eating more ownership. So I think that makes a lot of sense to just kind of like plug in 3 cheap running backs and then go with expensive quarterbacks. The other thing that I was thinking as well, and this is kind of more of a segue into the running back stuff, but The other thing I was thinking about was, what if we just spend up at running back? Like, is there enough value around the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the tight ends to where we could just say, fuck it, I'm not going to eat what might turn out to be shaky running back by committee running backs on the low end. Instead, just play like a Christian McCaffrey plus Bijan and then have a bunch of value around them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's pull up the running backs. I think I think the running backs are pretty much like what's going to determine the Bills this week. And I am having trouble like going double running back pay up, mostly because there's so many mid-range and up and higher range receivers that have really nice ceilings and are not very owned, where like I can convince myself to go. I have been able to convince myself. So there's 4 running backs that are going to be chalky, 1 expensive and 3 cheap. Okay. The pay up is CMC, who we talked about, has great usage, great projection. The 3 value guys are Monangai, Tracy, and Warren. Like those are the 3 guys. Just as a starting point, like I think at least 1 and maybe 2 of those guys will fail, but they all project extremely well. And you kind of have to decide who you have the most faith in. Personally, just because of game environment, I like Monangai because of the Bears game environment with the Bengals. It's just a big total with shitty defenses. Tracy, I think is like probably a little shakier than people would like to admit. Like he's like, I don't know, like it's not like the Giants have like an incredible running game. Like Scadaboo was doing fine, but he wasn't killing it, right? And I know the Niners are beat up, but like it's not like Tracy is considered some blue chip prospect. And then Warren is kind of weird shock. Like Warren is like playing against the Colts and like he hasn't had great performances. So of all those, I honestly think Warren is the shakiest by a good bit. But more macro question wise, I think it's interesting to figure out how to get. We have a similar dynamic to what we had last week, where like we had Bijan and Taylor that were like the super owned guys, and then the next tier, Cook. There was like a few guys. Barkley and Cook were like the main 2. I wrote kind of a Slate recap. They went crazy at like way lower ownership because Bijan and Taylor were so owned. This week, it's all going to be sucked up by CMC, Monangai, Tracy, and to some degree Warren, and that leaves like a nice group of people that are not going to be very owned, and that's like Taylor, Bijan, to your point, the pay ups, Jacobs mid range, Gibbs, kind of mid range, Kyren Williams, who I think is like a really stellar play in a game that they should just like kill the Saints. Vidal, who's like interesting in that game where the Chargers should dominate against Tennessee. Like all of those guys are in really good spots, similarly to how Cook and Barkley were last week. And they're all going to come in like significantly underowned. And like whether we go all the way up to Bijan and Taylor, I think is largely dictated by how much you like the wide receiver value and the tight end value, because we already know we have Dart or Mac Jones. So it's kind of like deciding like, can you get up to Taylor and Bijan if you like the wide receiver tight end value enough? If the answer is yes, then you're going to feel comfortable going up to Taylor Bijan. I have not been thrilled with the receiver value, and so I'm more likely to pivot from the cheaper running backs to the Kyren, Vidal, like Jacobs, Gibbs range. I think like I'd rather live in like the mid to low 4s or low 5s at receiver than go all the way down to like 3,800, 4K. So, but the bigger point here is just that like we do have a few running backs sucking up ownership, and I think like I don't think you should fade all the chalk running backs, but I think you have to decide like, are you going to get off of CMC and get down to the Cook Williams? Are you going to get off Monangai and Tracy or Warren and get up to like one of those guys? Or are you going to get all the way up to Bijan Taylor? What you do there is largely dictated again by your wide receiver value, and it's going to make a huge difference in your leverage this week.
Yeah. I'll hit some questions and then I'll answer, or I'll talk through some of this because I have some thoughts overall on like how to approach it. Thoughts on Stroud. I hadn't really thought about Stroud yet, but I know that he gets back his weapons. We like that.
They're still playing Denver's defense.
Well, yeah, but Denver,
I know Surtain is out.
Surtain is out. And Surtain being out is fucking massive for like everything, right?
Yeah.
It's still a pretty scary defense, but Houston is at home, I think.
He's only 5,100. I mean, he's $100 more than Mac Jones. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
he's like he's like a real quarterback. Like,
yeah, like he's a real dude.
I know they had a bad start, but like he's a real quarterback.
Yeah, and now he has all of his weapons back. So yeah, I think I'm fine with that. It'll all come down to what you do at running back. Running back is really just the entire linchpin on this slate. If you go with like the pairing of Monangai plus McCaffrey, then yeah, fucking fire up a Stroud plus Nico plus Christian Kirk stack, because like you need to introduce some volatility. You need some relative value. So I don't have a problem with that. He's cheap enough. Like I don't have a problem with that. But I had not thought about him yet. So just to be clear, that he's that far off the board. You absolutely, if you are going to play him, just surround him with like mega chalk. Drake May thoughts. Drake May's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Kind of similar thoughts as to what I had just said about Stroud. That the only difference is that you have to actually pay a price for May. He's a little bit more expensive. He's 6,500. So in that case, like he's still probably a strong play, and at least the receiving options are a bit cheaper. So you probably about equal opportunity cost doing something with Stroud plus Nico. Again, it's just it really just depends on if you are going to, like, if you don't play Kyle Monangai, especially if you don't play the pairing of Christian McCaffrey plus Kyle Monangai, do not touch Drake May. Like you'll just have too much volatility in your lineup. There won't be enough ownership. But if you have both Kyle Monangai and Christian McCaffrey, or Monangai plus Trayvon Henderson or Tyrone Tracy or something like that, right? Like, yeah, go ahead. Because I think that he introduces some volatility that you need. Do you have extra thoughts on Drake May? I don't. He's fine.
Not really. Okay. I think he's fine. I mean, he's had some nice scores. Atlanta's defense, I don't think is great. They got lit up by the Dolphins 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I don't hate it. I think you can skinny him with Diggs. He's a little bit of leverage off Henderson, although Henderson's not going to be that owned. He's going to be like a tier below Tracy, CMC, and Monangai. So you don't really get much leverage off Henderson.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. What do you think, Jaylen Warren? And then he did say thanks for the intel on Warren. I don't get the ownership on him versus the Colts. Yeah, we mostly agree with that. Warren. So for those who don't know, I do a lot of consulting and work over at Fantasy Life. So I work with Dwayne McFarland a lot. Dwayne is really high on Jaylen Warren. His baselines and his usage are really, really strong. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, like I just can't imagine that his ownership is going to be that high this week.
My thing with Warren, honestly, is like, and this is like very freezing cold takeable, but I'm willing to say it. Like, are you really going to get buried by him? Like, Warren could have a good game. Like, he could 2x at his price, but like, are you going to get buried by Warren? I don't know. Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't see like Warren just completely burying you against the Colts.
Well, I mean, look, his median is 15.67. His expected fantasy points on the season is 16.12. I mean, it's like he's going to get you somewhere between 10 and 20 fantasy points most of the time. His range of outcomes is just not that wide. Whereas,
that's what I mean. So I'd rather get some ceiling. Like if you can get to Kyron, like, yeah, Kyron can fucking nuke against the Saints.
Well, but here's the other thing. I don't think that we should think of Jaylen Warren as an ownership play. Just to be clear, I think he's going to come in like 9% owned, because people are going to look at Jaylen Warren and they're going to say, "Oh, this."
Nobody wants to play him over Monangai and Tracy, right?
No, absolutely not. Like they're going to say this is the same role that he's been in, and they're against the Colts, who are a fucking wagon. So you have to assume that they're going to be playing from behind. Like maybe people are trying to play on the receiving angle or whatever. But like they're going to look at him, they're going to say it's the same role. They're going to say that it's a running back that's a dog in a game, and then they're going to look at Tyrone Tracy. They're going to look at Travion Henderson. They're going to look at Kyle Monangai. They're going to look at David Montgomery and Kareem Hunt. Like there's so many cheap plays that Jaylen Warren's not going to have ownership. So yeah. I think that if what you want to look at for Jaylen Warren is that he is unowned and that he is consistent. Because to your point, I don't think that he buries you, but I do think
no, he's got a safe floor though. He's got a safe floor,
right? he gets you 10 to 20 the vast majority of the time. Monangai, he can get you like 0 to 25, right? Like there's more downside among Monangai. Tyrone Tracy gets you somewhere between like 5 and 25, right? He's a little bit higher. Trevion Henderson, I don't even think that Trevion Henderson should be like a play this week. I think he's probably the worst play of this group.
There's a little bit of wish casting on him, right? Because people he had their preseason and everyone really wanted to be good. Now Ramondre's out. So
yeah,
they're like, oh, like this is the breakout. It's like, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. The Pats really suggested they're gonna like make him their workhorse.
And like have the Pats really suggested that he's good? Like they keep calling up like practice squad guys to play in front of him. He's probably just not good.
Yeah.
So I think
it could be a breakout, but I'm okay waiting. Yeah.
I just think there's more downside on all the other guys than there is on Jaylen Warren. So if I'm right and Jaylen Warren comes in at like 9% owned, I think he's a good play. If he comes in at 21% owned, he's a fucking trash play. So this is one of those like, if my intuition is right, then
I think you're right. I think he was projecting as chalkier before, and for whatever reason, I think the field.
Yeah,
it's probably just that everyone realized like, oh, like Monangai, Tracy, CMC, like you just said, like the list you just went through. I think the field progressively realized that, and Warren just was like he cooled down.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
So one thing I just want to mention about the running back situation, and this is going to play into the receiver choices too. There are a couple mini, like direct, indirect leverage decisions at running back too. Like Dart and Tracy, I do think are like somewhat inversely correlated. Like I think like you probably want Dart running one in, or like for Tracy to get there, he's going to have to get enough usage that it's probably going to cannibalize some of Dart's opportunity. So I do think there's like some inverse correlation there. I'm not 100% sure about Monangai with Caleb, but it's probably similar. Like I don't think you probably want to play them together. I think you probably want to play Odunze and Zacchaeus with Caleb if you're not playing Monangai, and then also CMC. Like CMC is probably the one where you can probably most play Mac Jones with him, because CMC does that fucking everything. He catches the ball a lot. And so he's, of all the guys, like he's the one I'm most okay with playing with the quarterback of those guys. Yeah. But I think it's just worth keeping that in mind when we go to receiver, that like game script and correlation does make you kind of decide a little bit with the Bears and the Giants, kind of how you want to approach those games with those running backs.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you wanted to kind of touch on that's like more under the radar here? Also, really quick, I just wanted to point out small field ownership percentage on Kyle Monangai is 157%. So you're crazy. What the fuck happened with my small field ownership algorithm? This last run, I loaded it for those who don't usually tune in. I don't look at the slate until this show. So like, I just kind of like let the numbers run with the wind. And like sometimes
I like that you react. Like for me, it's fun because as you know, so the way this usually works is that like usually on Friday and then earlier on Saturday, I kind of dissect the slate and I send James kind of my thoughts so that we have a script. But then James doesn't look at anything until real time. And so for me, I feel like I like watch the movie and I get to watch somebody else watch the movie and watch the reactions. And I'm like, oh, he's about to find out. Like he's about to see, like, here comes a jump scare. Like I'm going to watch him jump back.
This fucking jump scare of Monangai at 50% owned.
Yeah. Gross. So no, to your question at running back, no, but I do think it's just a similar dynamic to last week with these other guys who are going to come in like really low owned and good. And so the question is like, what running backs are in really good spots, project pretty well, if not really well, and are not going to be his own? And I think there's several. I think Kyron, number one, like, I think it's fucking wonderful. Like his price is really fair. It's a really, really good spot and he's not going to be very owned. It's like the same exact play as James Cook last week, only he's cheap. So you're not even giving up that much because he's cheap. Like you don't have to get up to like 8K or 7K for him. I think James Cook is in an interesting spot just in that game. Like that game could get super nutty and he's going to be unowned. Like if you want exposure to that game, Kareem Hunt, if you're going cheap, like that's another way to get that game. Like everyone's going to play Tracy and Warren. No, well, not Warren so much. We just talked about Manon guy and Hunt. Hunt is like $100 off one of those two guys. And like he has a pretty good role in that, also in that game.
Yeah.
And then I also think Vidal is interesting. I just think like he's got a good role, and the Chargers should just run over the Tennessee. Like they should just kill him. So I could see him having a nice role. So I don't know. I mean, am I like trying super hard to get to one of those guys? Not really. Like the only one I'm like kind of excited about is Kyron. But those other guys, I think they're very justifiable. Like I think like if you can get off one or two of those chalk running backs, depending how big your field size is, and you can use one of those guys instead, I think they could still get you there.
This slate is going to be so fucking trash if all these chalky ass cheap running backs hit. Like that, it's just a nightmare situation if three of these guys have 20 plus fantasy points, because what that turns this slate into is like, you know, what stack ended up having like 4 more fantasy points than the other stacks. And congrats, the Millie Maker winner scores 248 fucking fantasy points, and a min cash is like 201. And you just like jump.
What's really hard about these slates is you kind of have to make a decision, which is like, do you kind of do what everyone's doing, and then you're gonna like either bubble or like do really well by like 10 points, and then or do you do something different and you give yourself like a much better win equity percentile, but you can also completely just brick. Like you really have to take on like a lot more risk to get different on a slate like this. And I do think like if enough of the chalk crashes, like the people who are contrarian will win. But like if you
this is one of those slates where like a contrarian, like if you play in a contrarian way, you could clean the fuck up. Like these are the kind of slates where like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like this is the kind of slate where God, what the fuck is his name? Ricky D, right?
Yeah.
This is the Ricky D cleanup slate where like if the chalk fails, he just like literally sweeps every single entry contest and like high entry contest and all that kind of shit. This is a giant squid slate where for no fucking reason he's completely against all the chalk. I mean, obviously he has, but this is a contrarian player's dream. And a contrarian player's dream is, okay, well, this is either I win everything or I have lost my entire collective ass.
Right. And that's kind of like fun. It makes it hard because like there's going to be a lot of people who just 2x this week, and then there's going to be like some good players who completely brick if the chalk goes off, and then like there's going to be some winners who just like parlayed the right shit, which is going to be dumb. But let's talk about receiver, because receiver I think is a little flatter. I mean, the only like super chalk is Jamar. I think Puka will be owned. Like he's not like unowned, but he'll be like pretty owned, Puka. But Jamar will be super chalk. Like Jamar, CMC, and the cheap receiver and the cheap running backs. Like that's the super chalk build. And honestly, like I really will find it hard not to have Chase in my small field lineups. Like Flacco's targeting him like no joke. I think like 15 times a game, like 15 to 17 times a game. Yeah. And the Bears defense is not good. Like so for small field, I don't know. I think it's like I honestly just think you like just play Jamar Chase. I don't think it's worth. He's just his volume is too voluminous. Like it's crazy. The good news is after those two guys, it gets pretty flat. It gets pretty flat. And that's why it's going to be like the 2v2s or 3v3s of the receiver with the cheap running backs that kind of determine your slate, because that's where all the ownership differences are. It's at running back. Right? Unless you happen upon the right leverage running back who goes nuts at like the Saquon of last week or the Cook of last week, who just outscore one of the chalky running backs enough where like plus a little bit of leverage at receiver, you win. That's kind of like what's going to dictate the outcome, like how much of the running back leverage goes off. If none of it goes off, then you got to get like really different at receiver. At least you have to get enough leverage at receiver to win. If some of the running back chalk fails and you have the right guy who surpasses them, then you still have to get receiver right, but like you don't have to get it as perfect in that situation. I think that probably makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. I think that wide receiver, because it's so flat, yeah, I think that Jamar Chase is a terrific play, but I think that Rashee Rice is a better play.
I
Just
think
like
Rashee Rice is an amazing play.
his expected fantasy points are fucking stupid since he came back, and he's still ramping up. 7,600 is, I mean, he's going to beat Puka Nakua's price in 2 weeks, probably. He's probably going to be an $8,500 wide receiver. Kansas City Buffalo has the highest total on the slate by like a decent margin. You know, I already have interest in stacking that, and you can afford him. So, as much as I think that Jamar Chase is a great play, one of the things that I think you can do is just eat all of the running back chalk and just not play Jamar Chase.
True.
I mean, and that gives you all the relative value that you need.
Jamar Chase and CMC have very similar relationships to the rest of the plays this week. Like they both project really well. They're both like, you have good reasons to play them, but they're both very owned. And if you fade CMC to go to like that middle range running back, or just go all cheap running back, or if you fade Jamar Chase and you go to Rashee Rice, like I palpably felt like liberty in my builds once I went down from CMC. I was like, let me just see what happens if I go from CMC to Kyron.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, now I can get to all these fucking wide receivers I want. And like, oh, by the way, like I have a bunch of cheap running backs who are pretty good, and Kyron projects pretty well, right? Similarly with Jamar Chase, you could say the same thing. You're like, what if I just go from Jamar Chase to Rashee Rice, save myself that money, and then all of a sudden, like you open up the pivot at running back or like the mid range at wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I think those are going to be really important. Like, I think you can fade Jamar and CMC if you like pivot them the right way. But I think they're also both really good plays. It's just a matter of kind of like deciding what it opens up if you do it.
Yeah, I think they're those two are really like the biggest spots where you can really find leverage on the slate. When you have such strong value, the way that you end up winning slates is by being different with your studs. And that's for all of DFS, right? Like that's not just NFL. That's NBA, right? Like when we think of NBA DFS, one of the biggest points of leverage that you can make is simply by playing a lower owned stud. If Giannis is going to be 45% owned, if you just play like the 9% owned fucking LaMelo Ball or some shit, like the ceilings are the same, and you end up having this linear difference, and you can just find so much leverage on that. You can do the same thing in NFL, right? With Jamar Chase is going to be 35% owned, which he should be. And, you know, Justin Jefferson's going to be 3% owned. Like, Justin Jefferson can nuke a fucking slate, right? It's not like Detroit's pass defense is some incredible shit, right? Devontae Adams at 7,500. Even Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be probably half the ownership of Jamar Chase, and he's $100 cheaper. So, and Rashee Rice is probably going to be about half the ownership. So those guys, all of them, I think are completely.
So this is where I think our range of outcomes, and it's like, this is where our sheets are really helpful for people who understand probability, because what you can look at with Jamar Chase is 2x, 3x, 4x, right? And then you look at like Amon-Ra, okay, who is lower on each of those, right?
Yep.
But people who understand probability understand that like a probability curve, right, is going to look like this. And then, so let's say Jamar Chase is like this, and then Amon-Ra is like this, but they both have the same tail, and they actually cross over quite a bit. Like in people's heads, they make it much more binary. It's much more like Jamar Chase is like, the way they think of the curve is that like Jamar Chase has like a double the chance of getting to his ceiling as Amon-Ra. And that's not the case. Like, it's not the case. He's probably got like a 5 to 10% chance more of getting there to the ceiling. And when he doesn't, and you have Amon-Ra at half the ownership, I just think that the curves overlap a lot more than people realize. I guess that's my point.
I mean, look at the top finish rate, right? Top finish rate, it shows in the sheets how often, and I'm looking at specifically wide receivers. So how often a player within that subset is the top overall scoring option in that subset. So Jamar Chase has a 23.2% chance to be the top scoring wide receiver on the slate. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a 12.2% chance. So you have about a 10% difference in top finish rate between those two wide receivers. Like there's going to be a 20% difference in ownership probably. So there's 10% there that is being unaccounted for by the field. Like if it was perfectly, if it was perfectly efficient ownership, then you would expect to see Amon-Ra St. Brown be about 10% less owned than Jamar Chase, and we just don't think that's going to happen. So
yep.
So I think
go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to hammer home. I think that your studs are where you can really find leverage on these kinds of slates, and that goes for all of DFS. It's inclusive of all different sports.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is also interesting, a receiver goes back to what you talked about the quarterback, which is that we have some good quarterbacks in really good game environments. Mm-hmm. And it was whoever asked about Goff, I said, like, when we get to receiver, I'll talk about the wide receivers who are paired with some of the better quarterbacks. So like, I think there's a few games where teams have really nice totals and they won't be as owned just because of the pricing dynamics. So like, let's talk about like a few of those. So Herbert, for example, right? If you sort by the Chargers receivers, you'll see that Ladd, and if you want, maybe what you can do here is you can pull up tight end also, so we can see their pass catchers. So like if you just click on like receiver and tight end, that way as we sort them, we can see like, oh, it turns out, this quarterback has some really nice pairing options at relatively low ownership, but really nice range of outcomes.
Yeah.
So if you sort it by like team, we'll see like the Chargers are one cluster. It's like a cluster, where we're going to see like tight end and wide receiver has like a bunch of nice value. Like you can kind of see how they cluster. I do this sometimes for baseball, like or hockey, where like I'll sort teams by just the team. And I kind of see like where are their clusters of good value. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's nice because Herbert won't be that owned. And they have a really nice total. Right. Another one is Chicago, which gets you leverage off Monangai. If you go to Chicago, what you'll see is Zacchaeus, Odunze, and DJ Moore all have like relatively decent projections, right? With Caleb, who won't be like unowned, but not super owned because everyone's playing Monangai. So those are two of them. And then there's a few like just like one-offs where you kind of have to convince yourself to either skinny the quarterback or play a guy at like slightly lesser projection. I would say the Giants with Dart, Wandale projects well. And then they also have the punt tight end, Theo Johnson, who projects pretty well. And you also get off Tracy, but with those guys. So like, that's pretty nice. The Niners, if you play Mac Jones, you have Juwan Jennings and Kittle, who both project really well. You can play those two guys like with or without CMC. Like I don't have any problem playing CMC with Mac Jones or one of those two guys. And so anyway, I just think there's a clusters of good wide receiver tight end plays this week that make it like I think a little easier to pick your quarterbacks. And that's like one way to do it is kind of like sort by like just choose wide receiver tight end in the models and kind of go up and down and kind of just see where there's clusters of nice guys. And that makes it easy. It doesn't mean you can't like skinny like Drake May with Stephon Diggs, who projects really well. Because you can, because Drake May runs and Stephon Diggs projects really well. But I don't know, like it's kind of nice to have a quarterback where you have like 2 or 3 weapons to choose from.
Yeah. On that same point, I think that Jacksonville looks really good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really, really cheap stack. Parker Washington and Diami Brown are both cheap, 3,700, 3,800. And then Brian Thomas Jr., without fucking Travis Hunter there, he should go right back to being like a mid 7Ks wide receiver.
And we talked about Vegas is just fucking horrendous.
Yeah, Vegas is fucking giga trash. One player that we didn't mention with running backs is Travis Etienne. Where like Las Vegas is so fucking bad, dude. Jacksonville, and especially Jacksonville, is coming out of a bye week. Like, I think that Jacksonville probably makes a lot of sense here. When you look at 2X's, 3X rates, they are similar to, a Kansas City or a Chargers or any of these other teams we talk about with these clusters. But I like this tactic. This is not something that I do enough for NFL. I do this a lot for MLB, but I don't do this enough for NFL. Atlanta is another team here too, right? Like these three guys, like this is pretty much just who they are. Buffalo is too cheap. Shakur at 5,300, and then Kincaid and Coleman, like especially with how expensive Josh Allen is. So when you break it down this way, I really like this way of breaking things down.
Yeah. And the nice thing is like the other way you can do it is you can do this while you look at game totals and ownership, right? So like we know that there's going to be certain clusters of ownership, but like interestingly, when you do this, what you see is like KC Buffalo, like people aren't really getting to it because it's hard. Like it's hard to get the Mahomes, Rice, Kelsey. Buffalo, like people just like aren't comfortable getting up to Josh Allen because like who do you play him with? Shakir, you play him naked. Right. Indy, like that's your team. Like this has been your, like you're gonna die in that hill, right? Like people aren't getting to Danny Jones with Warren and like Pittman. They're just not getting there to him. And they have a big total. Green Bay, like I'm probably not going to play Green Bay, but like similarly, like they have a huge total, and like no one's playing Dobbs and Tucker Kraft with Jordan Love.
Right.
And then the Chargers already mentioned. The Chargers, I think Herbert with Gadsden, QJ, Ladd, like any of those guys. I mean, no one's playing that. So, like more macroscopically, it's similar to, again, like James Cook last week. Like James Cook was in like a really good spot, and we knew he wasn't going to be owned just because Bijan and Taylor were getting all the ownership. Like these quarterbacks and receivers are in really good spots, and they project as clusters of good projection, but they're just not going to be owned because of the slate pricing. So I don't know. Like I think one way to do this is kind of what you said, which is like just choose your three favorite chalk running backs and then choose your favorite cluster here. And then that's it. Like, and then if you get the right cluster with the right chalk running backs, you win.
I think that's a great way to look at it. Gonna hit a couple questions here, and then we'll move on to I don't know, we could talk tight ends, but we just kind of did that with wide receivers, tight ends. Let's see. Can you stack Drake May with his running backs or wide receivers? I wouldn't. I'm not.
You also want he runs, and you kind of want his running. I also, like we talked about Travion. Like I'm not going to force Travion.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm interested in Travion. Just overall, but we'll see how things go. Is playing T. Higgins over Chase getting too cute? No, I don't think so. I think it's fine. T. Higgins is a baller. Like
I think one thing we didn't say is that, and maybe it's because he was injured, but like it's funny that no one's going to play Flacco, but everyone's going to play Chase. I mean, like that's like maybe like the obvious thing.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins projects really well and is only projecting for 5% owned. I don't have any problem with that. I would just say the same thing that I have said kind of to like the Stroud comment, right? Like if you're going to play 5% T. Higgins and fade Jamar Chase, you'd better fucking have ownership everywhere else, because you just don't need to be that much different if you're going to be taking that route. And then last question, then we'll move on to tight ends. Michael Pittman or Kyle Monange? Kyle Monange, not even close, just by like a mile.
Yeah, because consider the pricing. It's not it's really, that's not really a 1v1. They're priced so differently that it's a 2v2 or 3v3 because of the pricing difference.
Sure. If we're reading that wrong, if that's like a season long question, then it's different, right? Like if that's a season long question, then you are like, I guess let's just see where we're at with that. Let's see.
Yeah, if it's a season long question, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, at that point, like it's still a lean for Monange. He's got about a point higher in fantasy point expectation. Ceiling is a little bit lower, 29 versus 30. Like if this is a season long question, it's harder, and I'm going to lean Monange. But down.
Yeah, but for DFS purposes, it's been on guy by a mile.
Yeah, I'm close. And same question, Trayvon Henderson, a catching running back, can he be stacked with May? No, he cannot. We're just not super interested in Trayvon Henderson overall. Let's jump to
let's talk about tight end for a minute, and then we can wrap it up with some closing thoughts and any contrarian thoughts. Tight end is pretty clear. Like there's three main owned guys, like Kittle, Bowers, and Warren are kind of like, and then Kraft to some degree are going to be, I think, pretty owned. Maybe Gadsden gets some ownership, but Kittle's going to be pretty steamed. Like Kittle, people are excited to play Kittle. People are also pretty excited for Bowers coming back from injury because like there's, like he was supposed to be awesome. He was hurt. They kind of like sat him to heal him up. And apparently he's like good again now. That's what the narrative is. Like we haven't seen it from him this year. I'll just say that tight end's pretty deep this week. Like there's like a bunch of other guys that if you kind of go through what I just talked about with the quarterbacks, like you can play Mahomes with Kelsey and Rice. Laporte is a good play. I like Gadsden a lot with the Chargers. Theo Johnson, if you want to go all the way down to him and play him with Dart, I don't think is crazy. I think Hunter Henry's not bad. There's like a pretty good amount of depth. I mean, I'm fine with Kittle. Like he projects really, really well for us and for everybody. So like, I don't know, like tight end is like a position it's like become kind of like boring. Like I basically you just like try not to screw it up too bad, but it doesn't usually like make or break people's slates.
Yeah, so people have heard me talk a lot about how I think that stacking is kind of like not something that I'm focused on this year. Slates like this, you should be stacking. You should be maximizing your correlation. The main reason why is because like you have to have big ceiling on a slate like this. And when all of the ownership is going to be like filtered into just a couple running backs, your correlation is one of the things that will separate you with your stacks and with the players that you're utilizing. So with that being said, I think the tight end is really just like a consequence of who you're stacking. If you're going to stack San Francisco, then George Kittle is a great play. If you're going to stack Indianapolis, Tyler Warren's a great play. If you're going to stack the Chargers, Gadsden's a great play. Outside of that, you can pretty much play whoever the fuck you want this position.
Yeah.
I mean, look, dude, like the pricing is so bad on tight ends.
Yeah. I remember what I said to you at the beginning of the slate, right? You asked me how I was doing. And I said, I think I'm feeling like I'm seeing this slate very clearly and I'm not sure it's going to matter.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it might not matter.
But like I feel like it's very obvious. Like the pricing dynamics are like very clear. Just like it might not matter because you have to really get the right 3v3s to win.
Yeah, this is literally just like you're just fucking flipping coins on 2v2s this entire slate.
Yeah.
But just to hammer home this tight end pricing, look at these 3x rates.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
super deep. It's super deep.
Every tight end is $1,000.
Yeah, so like if you've got a bunch of leverage and you just want to eat Kittle chalk, I think it's fine. But like if you don't have a bunch of leverage and you're playing a quarterback, like if you're playing Herbert, like play Gadsden.
Right.
Like if you're playing if you're going to try to get the Mahomes, play Kelsey with him. Like just take care of the tight end with your quarterback this week if you could do it.
Yeah. Just fucking correlate or fucking don't. Because like look even the ownership, right? Like what the fuck what are you doing with the like oh yeah, you're gonna go from Kittle to Gadsden. Oh, congrats on your 6%.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Nothing at tight end matters. It does suck, right? Like tight end kind of used to be an interesting,
it's kind of a boring position. It's become like the opposite of defense. It's like, they're all fine and none of them are going to bury you.
Right. And defense, the defense is the absolute opposite, where it's just like, oh, they all suck, and one of them is going to have fucking 2 defensive touchdowns and kill the slate, and everyone's going to complain about it. But tight end is literally like,
by the way, the Dodgers are 3 outs away from losing the World Series, so this would be a pretty big upset.
Yeah, well, I'd rather Canada win right now anyway.
So look, let's talk about let's zoom back out. Let's recap kind of like the macro approach, and then let's pick our contrarian or or kind of like how we feel, like where you're going to feel best about getting leverage.
Yeah.
The macro approach again is going to be cheap quarterback, at least 2 of the cheap running backs, CMC, Chase, mid wide receivers, and cheap tight end. Like that's the chalk template. Okay. How you can differentiate is you can get off of at least one of the cheap running backs or CMC, and you can go to that leverage range of running backs, like the whole list of running backs that we talked about that are all really good and will be less owned in really good spots. Or you can embrace the cheap running back chalk and then play one of those sort of correlated stacks, those clusters in really good game environments at lower ownership, and then just hope you happen upon the right stack, right? That's kind of like this big picture. I'll just reiterate that I do think there's several underrated high total games who are not going to be quite as owned as they should be. Like Kansas City Buffalo is not going to be as owned as it should be. Mm-hmm. They're just Indianapolis overall will not be as owned as they should be. Detroit won't be very owned. Green Bay won't be very owned. Right? These are all teams and like with like really good totals against bad opponents, and they're not going to be that owned. So I think if you can even pick one-offs off of those teams, I think that gives you exposure to those games. Like if you can get a one-off, like if you just want to get like Gibbs or Amon-Ra, like I'm okay with that because it gives you exposure to those games, for at least for like the really good players that could get there. So, you know, I think it's kind of like annoying, but at least we have like some approaches that you can, and at the end of the day, you just have to decide like which of those approaches gives you the lineups that you like the most that have leverage, because I think they're all viable approaches to get leverage on the slate. It's just hard because realistically with this much value, there's a lot of shit that could go right and you could just die even if you play like the right leverage.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to play the slate. You can do the same thing that everyone else is going to do, and this is probably like the right thing to do, which is to pay down at running back and pay up at wide receiver. That's what people will do. Or there is the other way to do it, where I think that you could probably end up paying up at running back and paying down for your stack. Because there are cheap stacks, and I'll do a little hand build here in a second, like as we kind of like close things out, because I've liked kind of doing some hand builds to show what people are likely to do versus what I think is interesting. I do think that there's enough value with stacks to where paying up or paying at least in the mid range at running back makes sense, because as much as like the projections are pretty strong on a lot of these players, on like these cheap running backs, I meant it earlier when I said that like I think there's real downside on all of them. Like there's more downside on the running backs this week than there usually is, and the vast majority of the field is just going to jam it in. So yeah, I think that this week is all about roster construction. The micro plays basically don't matter at all. This is the most play whoever you want slate that we've had so far this year, because the micro, it doesn't matter if you play Bijan, it doesn't matter if you play Caleb Williams, it doesn't matter if you play Rashee Rice, it literally does not matter. The only thing that matters this week is the roster construction and where you are paying up and where you're paying down. And if you take a different path, you're still going to be on like the vast majority of the same players the field are on, outside of like 3 dudes. So that's where your 3v3 comes in. It's a hard week to stomach, and I think that the best way to play it is just to be contrarian this week, to be honest with you. Outside of like playing 555 or some shit like that. In the Millie Maker, I just think you got to be different. I think you're playing different.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I mean, in terms, let's while you do this, think about who your guy is. Who's your guy this week? Who, it doesn't have to be an unknown guy, but at least somebody who's like not in the chalk. Like can't be like CMC, one of the cheap running backs, or Jamar Chase. Like who's your favorite pivot off those guys, or just like sneaky play that has good upside that won't be zoned? Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first while I build this out, but I have a couple ideas.
I think there's a few running backs that I like because I think just like getting off of CMC and going to one of these guys gives you savings at running back, so you can get up at wide receiver a little bit to like the middle upper range. So I'm going to be looking like for the running back plays this week, at least one of them in most of my lineups that I think can get me good leverage. I think the ones I like, probably the sneakiest one is probably Josh Jacobs. I hate playing him, but he's like priced in a way that's awkward at 7,700. Green Bay against Carolina, and like he will be unowned. So he's probably the sneakiest. He's more of a large field play. Kyron is like a slight pivot. He'll be owned, but he'll be nowhere near as owned as the cheap guys or CMC. But he's like the vanilla pivot. Like, Kyron is like kind of the obvious vanilla pivot, which is kind of what I like for my field sizes. But I think Jacobs is really interesting. I think Vidal is really interesting too. Those are probably my guys, like my favorite pivots at running back. And that's where I just think you get so much power on this slate. Like if enough of the chalk fails at running back and those guys go off, I think it really helps you a lot.
Yeah, I think I just really, really like these pivots off of like the expensive guys. And I'll go to those here in a second as soon as I finish this lineup. But just for reference, I think that this is very likely the way that people are going to build out, right? We're going to have Jackson Dart, we're going to have Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, and Kyle Monange on at like most lineups. This is going to be the highest owned combination is these three guys. And then you just have so many guys in this range of this $5,500, $6,500. I could have come up from Lad McConkey to somebody else. I could have come down a little bit from DK Metcalf, but like, I think that you're going to have another mid-range guy right here. You're going to have a cheap tight end, and you're going to have probably a mid-range defense. So this is likely the way that people just build out on this slate. Oh
my God.
What happened?
Rojas just hit a homer to tie the game in the 9th.
Oh, man. Woo.
Miguel Rojas, 1 out, 2 outs away for the fucking Blue Jays. And Rojas goes deep. Wow.
That's fucking
my son in the background.
Look at that.
Ball
number. All right. Yeah, I think that I just like these pivots. I think that Rashee Rice is probably the best play on the slate. 7,600. He's too cheap. I think he's going to be like 20% owned. I have a lot of interest in this Kansas City Buffalo game. I just think that's a really good spot. The other spot that I think is really interesting is, like I said, Travis Etienne. I think Travis Etienne is in a really, really good spot against Las Vegas, who just sucks.
Yeah.
And I really like your Vidal call as well. The other thing that I think is worth saying is that Jackson Dart is going to have a lot of ownership, but New York Giants stacks are not necessarily going to have a lot of ownership. I think that New York Giants stacks make a lot of sense. Especially
Theo.
Yeah, especially if you want to pay up at running back like I want to. So those are kind of some broad takes. Bijan Robinson's really good play at 4% owned. So I think that you can do a lot if you just say, if you're comfortable with fading one or both of Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase, it just opens up the entire slate. It lets you do whatever you need to do.
That is the thing. And I don't know. I like weirdly feel better about doing it with CMC, like fading him than Chase, just because I feel like Chase's volume is going to be insane.
Well, we also have a million cheap running backs. So you can just play 3 cheap running backs.
So it's good. I mean, look, at least I don't know. I used to ask you, I have this weird thing with DFS where like every time I play a new sport, I win early, and I do it out of ignorance to the point that like I've asked James in the past, like, is it better to win through like ignorantly like doing something differently than everybody else, or consciously doing it differently? And what I've come to decide is it's better to be conscious about it, because I think that's the only way you can do it reproducibly. I think the only way you can keep winning over and over and over again is if you adequately assess a given slate and decide what your paths to leverage and winning are. And you can do it accidentally, and that's fun. And like, that's one way to do it. But I think it's always better to at least be aware of the slate dynamics, and then you kind of decide how you're going to be different. But I think what you should do is like, if you're going to play in a way that you at least give yourself a chance to win. I mean, like, don't just like don't be like so chalk buildish that your margin for error is so thin that like you're just like probably drawing dead, right? Like at least have a lineup that has some leverage. Like just do that, right? Even if decide how much you need based on your contest size, but do something that's going to make your lineup differentiated, right? Like you should be able to look at players' lineups tomorrow and be like, okay, were they just trying to min cash or were they trying to win?
You just have to know how you're going to win. That's just the key point. I think that it's as a mindset thing. You know, you see all the time people say like, "Oh, I hate all my lineups, but like, let's do this anyway." Like Pablo and I have talked about it before. We don't enter a lineup unless we think that it's just the nuts. Like I'm not going to put hundreds to thousands of dollars on a lineup that I don't that I hate.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to put money on lineups that I think are going to win, and part of that confidence is knowing how and why they win. Like, oh, like last week, I know that if I win, it's because I stacked Atlanta and Bijan was 60% owned. And so therefore, like if my Atlanta stack goes off and Bijan fails and I pass 60% of the field and I have a cheap stack, I'm like, you know, I knew how I was going to win if I ended up winning.
Yeah.
You got to know how you're going to win this week. Yep. Like, oh, I know that the way that I win is that I stacked the game that has a 56 fucking team total or something. Like Kansas City Buffalo, but I jammed all of the running back chalk around it, so I lowered my volatility. But I win because I stacked the highest total game that for some reason didn't have ownership.
Yep.
Like I know how I'm going to win, right? So just know that.
Yeah.
Know that. All right. Answer a couple questions and then we'll get out of here. So let's see. Caleb, without a bring back viable? Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I think that. Like I said, I think that correlations matter more this week. So if you're gonna go with Caleb and go with Caleb, Romadunze, and Olamide Zacchaeus or some shit, then just bring back Jamar Chase.
Bring back Jamar Chase if you're doing that. I mean,
he's high enough owned and it lowers your volatility. Might as well just fuck it. But like if you didn't want to and instead you wanted to play Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson and use all your salary there, like you could do that. I don't think the bringbacks are the most important thing in the world, but I do think that they are more important this week. Everyone playing 3 running backs, I guess. Well, yeah, because there's fucking maximum value of running back this week. So and it just makes sense to do it that way, right? There's plenty of good wide receiver plays, but there are very few wide receiver plays that are as good as like 7 of the running backs.
Too many running backs whose floor, median, ceiling, like all combined.
Right.
There's just too many combinations of them that like it's just not worth getting too cute with receiver there.
Right.
Flex.
Right. With the mention of the Raiders sucking, Brock Bowers is back and maybe finally healthy. Is it worth playing Bowers and bring back on a T-Law stack or maybe try Tucker? Yeah, sure. It's fine to play Brock Bowers if you think that he's healthy. It's fine to play Trey Tucker. I don't have a problem with that. But like, I also think that if you're doing that, like, let's theoretically have a Jacksonville stack of Trevor Lawrence, Brian Robinson, and Parker Washington, right? You have 2 of your wide receiver slots taken up. If you play Trey Tucker, all of a sudden, like that's all your wide receiver because you're going to play running backs. So like you're missing out on a lot of the upside receivers and in other games. If you want to do Brock Bowers, I'm fine with that because tight end is just like just play fucking whatever you want. It doesn't matter. They're all underpriced. So I think that if you're going to do that, do Brock Bowers. But I'd rather just wait to see if he's healthy.
Yeah, me too.
Me
too.
There's not enough upside.
People are like too anxious to play him. It's like we just talked about. There's like 10 other tight ends.
Oh
shit. Oh no. Vlad almost walked it off.
Oh, that would have been sick. I love that.
Yeah.
Just play. I don't know. I'm just not super into it.
Yeah.
Nico Laporta Goff or JMO Tyler Warren May in a high dollar GPP. I think I'd have to see the rest of the lineups, but like assuming that you're going to eat all of the ownership around those guys, I think I probably go with the second one with May, Warren, JMO.
Yeah, that's close.
That is close.
I kind of like Nico this week. I think Nico. I think Nico's kind of a sneaky the Houston started to get their mojo back. Nico's a fucking alpha dog, and he's not going to be owned. And like Denver is missing Surtain. I don't know, man. Like I think Nico is super sneaky this week.
Assuming you have ownership around that, yeah, I like you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like yeah,
you can flip coin, but yeah, we both like Nico a lot.
Yeah.
Thinking face, I agree, dude. We've been thinking this entire show. This is what we do. Less one-offs this week, I think, is important. I agree with that. I think correlation is king this week. It's old school DFS this week, right? Like we're playing DFS like it's fucking 2021 this week, all right?
Yeah.
Going to be wide receiver 2 that breaks the slate. It'll probably be fucking wide receiver 2. It's probably going to be Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is going to just annihilate the slate.
Anyone from that game could.
Oh yeah, that game is the nuts.
Yeah.
All right. There are currently 387 people watching this. I just ran the numbers for Paydirt, and I do not have 385 people who are subscribed for Paydirt. So if you're watching this, you're not subscribed already. Come get a subscription. It's only $40 a month. It's the best deal in the industry. I promise you, bar none. It's $40 for the entire site, all sports, all models, all the time. Also, NBA year-long models or subscription packages are available. $240 for the site through May 30th, or $210 if you only want NBA. There's also week passes for $20 and day passes for $5. We do this every day. Come join the Discord if you'd like to. The Discord is always popping. Right now MLB is obviously really popular, but we have different channels for every single sport. We have betting channels. We have bullshit channels. We even have a channel where you can go talk shit to people. If you want to get in an argument with somebody, you can just come talk shit to somebody in the Discord. So, definitely come join the Discord. Come grab a subscription. Thank you guys so much for all the support. As always, my name is James Pablo. Hopefully we get a Paydirt logo up at the top of the Million Maker this week. And if not, then we'll try again next week. So thank you guys so much. Love you. Appreciate you. And we will talk to you later on.